Everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Today we're talking about March 4th because today is March 4th. But you know what? We're putting you and taking you into marching forth today. So we're going to be having a pep talk. This is we're your coaches today. We are on the sidelines. We are in the locker room. We've pulled you in, and we're gonna sit here and have this pep talk with you about showing up on your social media. And it is so important for you to show up if you are in the digital age, if you're selling a product, a service, if you're a brick and mortar, if whatever you're trying to do, having this digital presence is really important. And we're going to dive into the importance of it. But first, I want to introduce myself. My name is Elizabeth Doss. I am a social media consultant, but I'm also a motion graphic designer who has married those two things together in creating animations for brands and businesses to use across social in the form of animated GIFs. I am a verified artist with Giphy. My GIFs have been viewed over 5.7 billion times. And my client stuff, I was adding up because I have to collect everybody's stuff. It's getting to 5 billion for my clients all added up of their stickers and their gifts and these other things, and how they're able to plug them in as a part of a marketing tool to react, respond, and to bring joy across the platforms. But today I want to hand things over to you to introduce yourself and maybe get us kicked off on just just like the gold star sticker of "you're doing great."
Well, I love how you talked about marketing because, hey, that's in my wheelhouse. I'm Stephanie Gillis-Polgard. I am the brand architect, if you will, behind Take Roots Consulting. And I use both traditional, the PR and marketing strategies to help businesses and nonprofits start those conversations and spark those connections, both on and offline. And when it comes to, as you said, the digital age, yes, there's many social media tools out there. You need to find the right ones that work for you and connect you to your community, those people that you're wanting to work with and serve. But the first thing is to show up, right? Understanding where you should be is based on who you're trying to speak to. And then, of course, that scary notion of just start. And that's what it is a lot of the time, right? I have worked with hundreds of clients when it comes to Instagram specifically. Instagram and LinkedIn are two of the platforms that I'm on. They're not the only two, but they're certainly the two platforms that I lean into heavily. And I constantly am finding myself reminding, not just me, but of course the clients that I work with, on how to get started. And it really starts with this notion of content pillars or content buckets for me, right? So it's one thing, you set up the accounts and then you go, well, now what? What is it that I'm going to talk about in this big, scary world of, and how can I talk to my target audience or my community when you know that there's over a billion people on Instagram or a billion people on TikTok? Well, you're not talking to a billion people at any one given time. Just talk to one person. And Elizabeth, you remind us of this a lot, right? It is about getting comfortable. We know that video performs well. You know that you've got a lot of experiences and lessons learned, some tools in your toolkit that you can share in an educational way. And so when I start to talk about or break down those content pillars or content buckets, it's really about a third, a third, and a third. So a third of that content that you're creating can be educational. It can be those step-by-step tutorials. It really helps establish credibility and be able to show people value directly. So get them to keep coming back because that's how you've established yourself. There is another third of your content that's motivational and inspirational, kind of like the pep talk or the cheerleading that we're going to do today. But how do you show up and do that? Whether it's sharing your favorite quote, whether it's, hey, I wish I had known this when I started my business or when I started my very first social media account or sent out that first email campaign, whatever it is. So that inspiration, that motivation, and that final pillar, that final third of your content is about you. It's about you and your business, your products, your services, because at the end of the day, we always need to remember people do business with people. And so they have to get a sense of who you are and really coming at it from a place of this is who I am. You can be inspired by other creators. We're not just creators ourselves and pushing out content, but we're actually consumers as well. So, are there still novel ideas in this world? Sure, but we're inspired every single day. And so we start breaking that down by pillars and having a content strategy, it makes it a lot easier to push the buttons and start showing up regularly.
That was such a great, like, brilliant, like, concise, like, here's all the things. Because I think that one thing that people struggle with is not knowing, what to post, and because you get in this mindset, you've got to tell everything, and it's not true. Like, I love the way Stephanie just went through that. That the more you can break it down into a smaller task or a smaller thing, the easier it is for you to convey. And also what I love is it with the buckets that Stephanie's talking about, the pillars that she's talking about, is that it hones you in to make sure you're reverse engineering what you're posting, why you're posting. If your goal is to sell something, then we should be pointing towards that goal. If your goal is just to be seen, or to have more people interacting with you, then that goal is a little bit different than just, you want to lean more on the inspiration and the education stuff. And so it's even this Venn diagram of what part are you leaning towards? Whoa. Um, what part are you leaning towards to really aim for the point? Because there are people. Let's just take an example of when this is done badly. Let's say you're a brick and mortar store, maybe let's just a boutique. Let's just go with that. Maybe you're this boutique in this small town, very it's very micro located. You do not offer online sales. Like, people have to come into your store to buy the thing. And if you're creating content to try to go viral, you might get thousands, millions of views and a whole bunch of follows, but none of those people live within 100 miles of you. So it doesn't translate to a local thing. Now, I do think that there's a way to bridge that into attention and other stuff. So I'm not saying that it's completely out of scope for that, but the idea of trying to target the entire world, if you're only really wanting to target your local community, is not a great use of your time. And so leaning into that Venn diagram of, I want to be entertaining, but I also need to make sure that I'm bridging this towards other stuff. But not knowing what to post is the big deal. And the other thing is we get in this mindset of sell, 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 like especially when you're trying when you're trying to sell something. And yet, because Richard has talked about this, our friend Richard, he talks about having sales breath. And how as soon as things shift into sales breath, people are gone. They're pieced out. And so instead of forcing them to see the sale, how can you help them imagine what their life is like after working with you, or after having your product, or even like what we're doing today, what we're talking about are some of these pain points of people posting on social. But what do pain points look like for your target audience? And how can you create content that helps them walk through from their pain point into this transformation? So a quick example, and Stephanie, guess where I'm going? I'm going to candles for just a second. You could think, oh, I sell candles. That's what I do. Sure. No, what if you shifted it a little bit? And maybe your target is moms, certain age, that type of thinking through that. And so if you told the story of the mom with the frantic day, you're running from one thing to the other, you're in the car all day because you're affording all these children to all these things, like you've been making 3 meals a day, you've been like in this go go go, and you finally, the kids are finally asleep, and then what does mom do? She goes, she lights her candle and she pulls out her book and her cozy blanket and her cup of hot tea, and finally gets to settle in for herself. But you're selling that moment, that atmosphere, that lifestyle, when you say, okay, here, let me picture this, and walking people from that transformation of the pain point into the other. And we would love to hear from you if you're watching on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube or here with us on Riverside. If you want to type in the comments, maybe something, even if it's a random object in your house, just play a game with Stephanie and I of how could we reframe selling a dry erase marker into a story that you could tell to bring your audience along. I know that was a little bit all over stuff, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I followed perfectly, so I'm good. I am good. But what I think on top of, we've talked about content pillars and this Venn diagram, reverse engineering, essentially what we're trying to get to, and then some people still find themselves stuck. They're like, yeah, that sounds great, but I don't know if that's going to work for my community. Or, listen, I'm just starting out and I only have, and it's like, remove the word only. People will say, I have 100, only 100 followers on Instagram. You have 100 followers on Instagram. Like, if 100 people came into your store, if 100 people emailed you, like, what would happen, right? You'd be over the moon. Talk to those people. And if you're unsure of what it is that they're actually looking for from you, ask them. The great thing about the platforms now more than ever, it makes it so easy to do that two-way. In Instagram, just like you're on, on LinkedIn, as we talked to that group as well, there's polls. So ask them, what would they like to see from you this week? I'm contemplating da 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 da. What do you think about? And get their information. And even if, because then people will say, sure, I tried polls, but I only got 2 people or 3 people engaged. 3 people told you what they thought. Use that. It's the easiest way to hear directly from your community about what it is and why they show up, why do they choose to keep following you. So when you're feeling stuck, or when you feel like, listen, Stephanie, I've done those content pillars, I have pushed the buttons and I still don't know, then use polls. Use the features within the platforms right now to talk to the people that are following you, because more often than not, so many of us think, oh, when we hit that big major milestone of a follower account, that's when it's all going to change for you. No, this is steady Eddie. This is the long game. And you need to keep showing up and delivering that value and engaging people. And yes, you can have fun. It's not always about the dance moves or the other thing, like, the funny memes, the breaking down. It starts to show your personality. And it goes back to that point before. People, if you're wanting people to work with you, if you're like me, as an example, and you offer professional services, right? Strategy sessions, all of the things, they need to know that they can work with you. And so sprinkling a little bit of that, that's a great way to show who you are. And anybody who's been following me for a while probably knows that I like lattes. I probably, and that's how we connect. I connect a lot with people. It's amazing to me, and it's lovely when I open my DMs and I see people sending me, funny memes, gifts, reels about latte art or anything, because they say, Stephanie, I saw this and I thought of you. That's connection. That is real connection that can happen on social media. So again, make it super simple when you're thinking through. A lot of people will batch create as well because time is, you know, finite. We all have the same 24 hours in the day. How are we going to do it? And if we're trying to work on the business and not necessarily always work in the business, how do we free up some of that time to do that business development work, to go out and network with people, or to do social listening on yes, social media, where we're in there engaging with other creators and starting or driving a conversation forward. So there's lots of things that we can do outside of just the creation mode that helps build that community and move us forward.
That's awesome. The on the polling side of things, I think people get kind of stuck in what question should I ask? What should be my multiple choice? And you can have fun with this. Like it doesn't have to be super serious with the stuff. Like I was working on one for a real estate agent, and the poll was what's next for you? And A, bigger kitchen, B, more storage, C, large yard. So it's not just you could what, but how could you reframe what's next for you in the context of your business? So if I'm selling social media management, I could say what's next for you? Do you want to grow followers? Do you want to get more views? Do you want to sell product? And have people do that. So that's one way, but you can also have fun where um, like I was thinking of things I didn't expect to have to adult. Like I didn't expect was so much of adulting. Like how often am I at the grocery store? How often, and like kind of break down what are some of the main like pain points and have fun with that just to get some interaction. But one thing I love that Stephanie that you do, maybe you could highlight this, is that when you ask those questions or you do those polls, you do a follow up with the person themselves as they've given you that little bit of information and not just left it at, that thing, but you continue the conversation in the DMs. And I would love for you to kind of dig into some of the results that you've seen using the polls in that way.
That, yeah, no, it's actually been fun to watch that. I've been doing it for a while, and the results are always shocking. You would think that it's not even always, a business question. In fact, more often than not, you drive engagement with those fun little ones that spark the conversation and then you continue to get to know each other in the DMs. And listen, I get it. There's a certain feeling like when people say, oh, my DMs are always open, and we know that some messages over there can get a little shady, but for the most part, when we are doing the polls and there are people that both follow you and don't follow you that can see you in the stories and they can participate, if I'm asking a business question related to strategy or what they want to see next, or how is their email marketing going, and do they have a lead generation or a lead magnet, to your point, Elizabeth, when I ask those and I give those very specific options, depending on, oh, what is a lead magnet? Could be an option. I don't know what that is. Tell me more. To, yeah, I have, but it's time to revamp it. I can do, because the beauty of Instagram in those polls is I can see who's answered or selected each one of the options that I've given, and subsequently have a response ready to do the follow up with Sally, who said, I've been trying to think about a lead magnet, don't know where to go. And I say, oh, well, have you thought of, or here's some very simple ways to do lead magnets. And I can give them, let's say, a freebie, a lead magnet that I've created myself to show them how to do this. For me, it's not about a sale. It's not that part of it. It's about starting to build that conversation and have them follow me so that when they're ready, or if they need my services down the road, they know who to come to because I've already offered up some value on a regular basis. And so that's what you try to do in the DMs. The last thing, please do not do this, anyone. Red flag, red flag. Do not respond to somebody with they've answered your poll and immediately you're like, we'll buy this. We'll buy this. I instantly block people that do that. And so, listen, there's a way to handle the DMs that is polished and professional and continues to drive the conversation forward, as opposed to making it about the sale. So, again, just navigate that conversation like you would in a coffee shop. show up there as you would somewhere else so that people know who you are. But for me, yes, it's always about what is the relevance of the poll, and then how can I offer up additional value once I know where somebody is in their journey, because I have to meet them where they're at. And that's a really important piece. Back over to you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, sure. So Stephanie, one thing that was popping up as I was preparing for today, which was very little. You think, oh, I'd have this big, like, anyway, whatever. No, was that's one thing people are afraid of in posting is being judged. And I believe me, I understand that. And I've been in that mindset for a very long time of there's so many factors in the being judged part of things. Like we don't like how we look, we don't like how we sound, we don't want our friends and family to see us making a fool of ourselves. And them thinking, oh well, they're, just they're whatever, hustling, or like they're making, they're making, I don't know, just we get in, we will come up with all of the reasons why. Um, and I want to say a couple of things on this point is that um, you've got to understand that if you're going to operate in this realm, then you really have to undermine the voices that are trying to keep you from stopping. You've got to ignore it and step over it. And something James and I have looked at is that the majority, there's usually like a 10 or 20% of the people in your life are the ones that will always have something negative to say, and you really have to ignore them. But what we end up doing is giving them the most attention. We listen to them the most because then we don't do the thing because of that. And I have learned for myself that I want to be someone that cheers people on. I may want to help them try to think through a couple of the steps that they're trying to do, but like I don't want to shut down anybody's dream. Okay. There's the end of your therapist session for the day. But the context of this in posting, something that I have come to find is that there are, while there may be haters and all that, and you got to ignore all that, there are people that are wanting to hear from you, and they need to hear from you, and they need to know what you offer and what you're there for and what you can help them with. And if you never say those things, they may never know that that's what you do or that's what you can do for them. So there's that point of it. And Richard is saying in the chat here, people will also cheer you on, lift you, share you, and encourage you. And so you lean towards that, lean into that. And I love that. I love it when people do that. So do it for other people when they show up on social media like complete fools, like myself running around at sunrise this morning. You'll have to go see my Instagram stories for that. But getting in that mindset of stepping past it, because I've had more than one person say to me, physically I can't travel, physically I can't do these things, financially I can't do them, mentally I can't, relationship wise I can't, with the kids we can't do stuff. And so they ride along on my journey or the things that I'm posting, and they use it as a way to connect. And so looking to those sides of that people and leaning into that, you never know, like there are so many people that are lurkers. It's so funny because when James and I travel, the people that we'll run into, they'll be like, oh yeah, I saw when you did such and such. And I was like, really? Because you didn't like it, you didn't comment, you didn't share it, you didn't say anything, but they talk about how much they enjoy it. And so I do want to say that to you, that showing up, it does make a difference for people. Now, I'm going to annoy some people with what I'm about to share on my screen. And so one of them being Richard, probably. So sorry about that. But I saw this post from Gary Vee the other day, and it just cracked me up. And so it's this infographic of like how to post on social media, and you open up the book and there's just one word in the book, and it says just post. Like just do the thing. Just get out there and do the thing. Now, I'm not going to swipe left because his language is atrocious. because he goes into this video. But go on his feed and watch this post. And so my thing before I hand it back to you, Steph, is something that Sean Walchef, he says, we follow him on LinkedIn and on Instagram, TikTok, Sean at Sean P Walchef. He's a great friend, but he has really talked to us about documenting instead of creating content. Just document what you're doing, because people get to know the process of what you're doing throughout your day, and they get to know you and what it might be like to work with you. And so if you can show them rather than just tell them what you do, it's a great way. So I'm going to hand things back to you, Stephanie. That was a lot.
Oh, that was so good. Imposter syndrome, right? How many times have we heard that over the last 2, 3, 4 years? I mean, yeah, sure, it's a real thing. We can feel awkward about it. Maybe we're not good enough. Maybe we don't have enough experience. Maybe we don't. And to your point, Elizabeth, those are those little voices. Shut them down. You do have experience. You do come to the table with something that someone out there needs to hear. You need to remind them of who you are. When's the last time you reintroduced or introduced yourself? Your community is constantly changing, and being able to serve it up to them and remind them, like, hey, guilty over here, by the way, as I raise my hand, like literally guilty. When is the last time I did a hi, I'm Stephanie and this is what I do on Instagram? And in the last month, my account over there has grown by almost 2,000 followers, because of one viral reel. And as of yesterday, it was 1.1 million views. And it was all about Canadian pride. But that's what happens. And so, yes, now I know I have, and maybe those people won't stick around, and that's all cool. But it is important to remind yourself to introduce yourself, back into your community, and remind them who you are and what you do, who you serve, because people are watching. To your point, Elizabeth, they may not be engaging. It's amazing to me. Now there's a new feature on Instagram, so you can see, or at least I can, I have it on my feed, not just reels and views, but you can see it on static posts. And so I can see that several hundred people may have, seen my static post from Friday, but 30 to 40 people may be engaged in it. What that tells me is what we've known all along, is that people are watching. They don't necessarily engage. And it's always a pleasant surprise when I know that there are people out there that have been following me for a while. And then all of a sudden, I'll get an email or I'll get a request to set up a strategy session. And really, what their message usually is, okay, I'm ready. So you don't know who necessarily is watching. Just because the likes are at X and the shares are over here and the view, like it, try, analytics are important, right? We should be understanding how to use our data to make better decisions for our business and how to show up, but they're not everything. And you have to remember that people are still watching you even if they're not engaging in your content. So it's always, like I said, a wonderful little surprise when I get those DMs or those, emails saying, "Okay, hi Steph, been watching for a while, really like it, now I'm ready." It's like perfect, because you have to meet them where they are. And that is, even Richard is saying 100%, that's what happens. Social media is meant to be social. You're meant to show up and share who you are and what it is that you do to connect with people. People do business with people. It is really that simple. So to
Yeah.
Gary V's point, it is as simple as hit post. Now,
Yes.
ask me how many drafts I have, sitting there ready to go, that haven't been posted yet. But I always say, well, listen, I've got a little library to choose from, and depending on the day or what's going on, then I can choose. But you have to hit the button.
Yes, it's so true. First off, I want to say on LinkedIn, uh, uh, Natasha's like, but I'm just so tired, which I totally, oh my gosh, I totally get. I've been in this mode too the last couple weeks, just with the craziness of life and other things. Is is being in panic post mode, which is not great, especially when you're posting for other people. Anyway, that's a side note. But I came across this quote that really delighted me, and Richard, you're gonna love this, I promise. It's that the opposite of operating in survival mode, where you're like just trying to keep up, is play, is to play. And so, how can you get in the mindset of how can I play with my social media instead of you thinking, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this? Because for me, the have tos paralyze me. Like, I can't think. I've lost it completely. But if I can get back into the realm of play, so you may need to even step away from everything digital and just go play with the idea in your mind, play with, it, and how can you show up in a playful way. So that was one point. But the other thing, something you touched on, Steph, and I know this, we are past time, so we'll wrap this up. But is that reintroduction side of things, like introducing yourself, to people, etc. I had a post that I was working on, and I realized that it's for a client, I'd been soft selling towards our goal, which is important, I think, to show what it's like to work with her in this realm. But I realized I hadn't directly said who she's looking for or what she's looking for. And so I took a step back and I was like, how can I make this as short as possible, as direct as possible to grab the most attention? And the post turned out, if you want to see it, you can DM me and I'll send you the post to see what I'm talking about. But I realized we hadn't just come out and said it. This is what we're looking for. And so, because she's hiring for a certain position, and we were being like, I was being like really like noodly about it. But it's the same with the offer that you have. Have you made a post that says directly, this is what I do? I know a couple years ago I made, which I need to refresh it. That's what I say, a couple years ago. I made a post that's like just a couple of seconds long. That's like, I make gifts. Here's what they send me. Here's what I create for them. And that post gets me more visibility and work because I very clearly just said the thing. This is what I do. This is how, and so what does that look like in the context of you? And just saying it very clearly. I'm looking for more clients. I'm looking for, to work with you. I'm looking to help you with your business, and make it super clear. And then give them a way, just like Stephanie talks about, pathway to that next conversation. Well, I want to personally thank you all for joining us today. It's been an amazing conversation. We will be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. And we would love to hear from you. If you have any topics that you would like, if you have any questions, we love talking tutorials. So even if it's how do I push these buttons? I saw this weird post and how did they make that? And send it to us and we will help you recreate it. Or maybe you need a little help with your business and thinking through some ideas. We would love to use you as a guinea pig and work through some of those things live, because other people can learn from those stories and those things. And so join us next Tuesday. We go live on a Riverside. You can actually join us here and maybe even pull you on stage. What? Riverside FM. We're on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook if you are curious to follow us. So I'm going to hand it off to you, Stephanie, to give us your final thoughts. And then thank you, Richard. I will do it as a post. Give us your final thoughts and send us to March 4th. Yeah? I was posing, commemorative posing.
Oh, my heart is full every time that we do these conversations because even though we're having the conversation, it's always in the back of my mind, hey Stephanie, why didn't you do that? When is the last time you did that? So I'm really good at helping clients work through and build out their strategies and show them how to push the buttons. And then all of a sudden I go, well, I'm too busy to do that. I'll get to that. So this is your reminder, your pep talk. You're not too busy. You have to make it a priority, and you need to show up and have those conversations online and jump into those conversations online because it's not, it doesn't start with conversion. It starts with conversation. And I think we often forget that, right? And people don't want to be sold to. let's have the conversation. Let's show up as ourselves, and continue to build the communities. So thank you, Elizabeth, for driving forth with the conversation. Looking forward to being back here next Tuesday, as you said, at 10 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Mountain, here on Cultivate Weekly. Have a great week, everyone.